Have you ever locked eyes with a stranger and felt as if you had known them forever? Maybe it was a fleeting moment, a glance exchanged in passing. Yet something about it stayed with you, lingering like a whisper from a forgotten dream. Or perhaps you've experienced the opposite. A person enters your life with such force and purpose that it feels as though they were sent to you. Not by chance, but by design. Think back to a time when someone arrived just when you needed them most. Did their words, actions, or even their presence leave a mark on your soul? These moments are rarely coincidences. They are threads woven into the intricate tapestry of our lives. Life has a mysterious way of connecting us with the right people at the right time, even if we don't understand why in the moment. Some relationships feel like a warm embrace, effortlessly uplifting us and reminding us of our worth. Others are more like a storm, unpredictable, challenging, and at times painful, but ultimately, they clear the way for growth. What if every single encounter, no matter how fleeting or significant, holds a purpose beyond what we can see on the surface? What if even the stranger who crosses our path for a brief second is part of a greater design? A cosmic dance orchestrated by forces beyond our comprehension? In this video, we'll explore the profound idea that people don't come into our lives by chance. Through the timeless lens of Zen philosophy and Buddhist wisdom, we'll unravel 7 captivating stories that illustrate how every interaction, every connection, carries a deeper meaning. These stories are not just tales of spiritual growth, they are mirrors reflecting the intricacies of our own lives. They reveal how the universe conspires to guide us, teach us, and challenge us through the people it places in our path. Imagine for a moment that your life is a vast, intricate puzzle. Each person you meet, whether for a fleeting moment or a lifetime, represents a unique piece of that puzzle. Some pieces fit effortlessly, clicking into place with a sense of harmony and completion. Others might feel jagged or misplaced, their edges sharp against yours. Yet they are no less vital to the whole picture. Even the most challenging pieces, the ones that seem out of place or cause discomfort, play an essential role in shaping who you are. Think about the people who have been anchors in your life, those who have steadied you in times of uncertainty. Perhaps it's a mentor who believed in you when no one else did, or a friend who listened without judgment when the weight of the world felt unbearable. Now consider the people who tested your patience, challenged your beliefs, or even caused you pain. While their presence might have felt unwelcome, could it be that they were there to teach you resilience, compassion, or self-awareness? It's often said that the most difficult people in our lives are our greatest teachers. Their lessons may be hard to embrace, but they are gifts nonetheless. Through the Zen stories we'll share, you'll discover how to look beyond the surface of your relationships. You'll see how the supportive friend, the fleeting acquaintance, and even the difficult colleague each serve a purpose in your spiritual journey. These tales will guide you to recognize the beauty in every connection, showing you how to cultivate gratitude for the people who shape your path. They will help you find meaning in the seemingly random encounters that color your days and inspire you to approach relationships with mindfulness and intention. As you listen, you may begin to see your own experiences in these stories. You might recall a time when a stranger's kind words lifted your spirits, or when someone's criticism pushed you to be better. Perhaps you'll think of someone who came into your life like a beacon of light, only to fade away once their purpose was fulfilled. These reflections are the beginning of a deeper understanding of how our lives are interwoven with those around us. So, I invite you to make yourself comfortable and join us on this journey. Together, we'll delve into the wisdom of Zen, uncovering truths that can transform the way you view your relationships and, ultimately, your own path in life. By the end of this video, you'll not only see the people in your life through a new lens, but also recognize the sacred role you play in the lives of others. Let's begin this journey of discovery, reflection, and growth. Story 1: The Garden of Life. under the soft petals of a blossoming cherry tree. The world seemed to pause. The elderly monk Hataka sat cross-legged in serene meditation, his presence exuding calm like the gentle breeze that carried the sweet fragrance of spring. When Hiroshi approached, his steps tentative yet purposeful, it was as if life itself had orchestrated the moment. Hiroshi, young and searching, had questions burning in his heart. "Master," he began hesitantly, "why is it that some people feel as if they've been part of my life before I even meet them, while others leave me restless and uneasy?" Hataka opened his eyes, gazing at Hiroshi with a kindness that seemed to pierce straight into the depths of his soul. "People never enter our lives by accident," he said, his voice steady yet gentle. "Every encounter has a purpose, whether to teach us, challenge us, or accompany us on our journey." The monk gestured to the vibrant garden surrounding them, where flowers of every hue swayed in the wind, and towering trees cast cool, comforting shadows. "Imagine your life as this garden," Hataka said. "Each person you meet is a seed planted by destiny. Some grow into brilliant flowers, bringing fleeting bursts of beauty and joy. Others become sturdy trees, offering shelter and strength through the changing seasons. Even the sharp stones buried in the soil, the ones that prick and cut, serve a purpose. They refine the gardener's hands, teaching patience, perseverance, and resilience." Hiroshi listened intently, his mind painting vivid images of the people he had encountered. He thought of the friend who had brought laughter and light into his life during their brief but unforgettable time together. Like a daisy that bloomed in spring and faded with the summer. He remembered the mentor whose steady guidance had shaped his character, standing tall and unyielding like the mighty oak nearby. And then there were the difficult ones, the sharp stones that had caused him pain. As Hiroshi reflected, he began to see even those painful experiences through a new lens. Hataka continued, his gaze resting on the horizon. "Some people are sent to us for a season, their presence brief but meaningful. Like flowers, they bring color and fragrance to our lives, reminding us of the beauty that exists in even the smallest moments. Their impermanence is their gift, for they teach us to treasure what is fleeting, to find joy in the here and now. But what of those who bring pain, Master?" Hiroshi asked, his voice tinged with the weight of his own past wounds. "What purpose do they serve?" The monk turned his eyes to the ground, where stones nestled among the roots of the trees. "The sharp stones are the most misunderstood," he said. "They are not here to harm but to challenge. They force us to confront the hard truths about ourselves, to cultivate strength we didn't know we had. Without them, the gardener's hands would remain soft and untested, unprepared for the trials of growth." Hiroshi thought of the coworker who had undermined him, the friend who had betrayed his trust. These encounters had left scars, but they had also taught him valuable lessons. The importance of discernment, the power of forgiveness, and the strength to rise above negativity. "Even the stones have their purpose," Hiroshi murmured, as if the realization were sinking into his very bones. Hataka smiled. "Exactly. Each person contributes to the garden of your life, shaping its landscape. The flowers remind us of joy and beauty. The trees provide stability and strength. And the stones build our resilience. Together, they create a harmonious whole, even if we cannot see it in the moment." As Hiroshi looked around the garden, he began to see it not just as a collection of plants and stones, but as a metaphor for his own life. He realized that his experiences, both joyful and painful, had molded him into the person he was. Each encounter, whether it lasted a moment or a lifetime, had left an indelible mark, shaping his character and guiding his path. Hataka's words resonated deeply, offering Hiroshi a new perspective. The garden was not perfect, it had weeds and thorns. just as life had its hardships and setbacks. But it was beautiful because of its imperfections, not in spite of them. The interplay of flowers, trees, and stones created a balance that was uniquely its own. In our modern lives, this metaphor holds profound relevance. How often do we lament the difficult people or challenging situations we face, wishing them away instead of asking what they are here to teach us? Hataka's wisdom encourages us to reframe these experiences, to see them not as obstacles but as opportunities for growth. Imagine the person who constantly tests your patience. Instead of viewing them as a burden, what if you saw them as a teacher, helping you cultivate tolerance and self-control? Or the friend who drifted away, what if their departure taught you the value of cherishing the present? When we adopt this perspective, even the most painful experiences become meaningful. The betrayal that once shattered your trust becomes the catalyst for learning to set boundaries. The criticism that wounded your pride becomes the push you needed to improve. Every person, every interaction, has a purpose, even if it's not immediately clear. As Hiroshi walked away from the cherry tree that day, he carried Hataka's words with him, like seeds ready to be planted. He began to approach his relationships with a new sense of curiosity and gratitude. Instead of clinging to expectations or resenting past hurts, he embraced each encounter for what it was, a unique and irreplaceable part of his journey. The garden of life is vast and ever-changing. Flowers bloom and wither. Trees grow tall and strong, and stones remain steadfast in their silent purpose. Yet together, they create a mosaic of experiences that shape who we are. When we learn to see the beauty in this intricate design, we find peace in knowing that every encounter, no matter how brief or challenging, has meaning. In the quiet of the garden, under the watchful gaze of the cherry blossoms, Hataka's wisdom lingers, a gentle reminder that life's greatest lessons often come from the simplest truths. We are all gardeners, tending to the seeds of connection planted by destiny. And as we nurture these relationships, we discover not only the beauty of the garden but also the beauty within ourselves. Story 2: The Sharp Stones of Growth. As the morning sun bathed the garden in a golden glow, Hiroshi returned to the cherry tree where he had once sought answers. This time, his thoughts were not of fleeting connections or the comforting presence of life's steady companions. Instead, his mind lingered on the sharp, uncomfortable edges of relationships that had left him questioning himself. "Master Hataka," he began, breaking the tranquil silence, "I've been thinking about those who bring difficulty into our lives. Why do they come to us? What purpose could their presence possibly serve?" Hataka turned his gaze to Hiroshi, his expression calm but thoughtful. "The people who challenge us the most," he said, "are often our greatest teachers. Though their lessons may come wrapped in pain, they offer gifts far more valuable than comfort." Hiroshi frowned slightly, unsure of what to make of these words. Seeing this, Hataka gestured for him to follow. They walked together along a narrow, rocky path that led to the edge of the garden. As they walked, Hataka shared a parable. "There was once a traveler on a long journey," he began. "The path he walked was littered with sharp stones, each one causing his feet to ache and bleed. At first, he cursed the stones, wishing for a smoother road. But over time, his feet grew tougher. By the end of his journey, the stones that had once caused him pain had made him stronger, enabling him to walk farther than he ever thought possible." Hiroshi glanced at the uneven trail beneath their feet, imagining the traveler's struggle. "So, the stones weren't there to harm him?" he asked. "They were there to prepare him for what lay ahead." "Exactly," Hataka replied. "And so it is with the people who challenge us. They are the sharp stones of our lives. They force us to confront the parts of ourselves we might otherwise avoid, pushing us to grow in ways we cannot achieve on our own." Hiroshi considered this as they walked in silence. Memories of his own sharp stones came to mind, relationships that had tested his patience, strained his confidence, and left him feeling wounded. There was the colleague who constantly undermined him, the friend who betrayed his trust, and the family member whose criticism cut deeply. Each encounter had left scars, but they had also left lessons. Without realizing it, he had become stronger, more self-aware, and better equipped to face life's challenges. Hataka seemed to sense his thoughts. "Difficult people act as mirrors," he said, reflecting our insecurities and blind spots. A controlling partner, for example, might reveal our need to assert independence. A critical parent can teach us to rely on ourselves rather than seek validation from others. While these lessons may be painful, they are also necessary for our growth. In today's world, it's easy to seek out comfort and avoid conflict. Modern society conditions us to escape discomfort, to silence those who challenge us, and to surround ourselves only with people who affirm our views. But in doing so, we miss the opportunity to transform. The sharp stones of life, the people and situations that test our limits, are not obstacles to avoid but opportunities to embrace. They remind us that growth often comes through discomfort, not ease. Hataka paused, bending down to pick up a small, jagged rock from the path. He held it out for Hiroshi to see. "Imagine this stone as someone who tests your patience," he said. "Perhaps they irritate you with their behavior or their words. You might wish to rid yourself of their presence. But what if, instead of pushing them away, you asked yourself, 'What is this person here to teach me?'" Suddenly, the stone is no longer just a source of pain. It becomes a tool for self-discovery. Hiroshi took the stone from Hataka's hand, feeling its rough edges. "What if the pain is too much to bear?" he asked quietly. "Pain is a teacher," Hataka said gently. "It does not come to stay but to show us something we need to see. When the lesson is learned, the pain eases, and we are left stronger for having faced it. The key is to approach it with curiosity rather than resistance. Instead of asking, 'Why is this happening to me?' ask, 'What can I learn from this?' In doing so, you transform the sharp stones into stepping stones." As Hiroshi held the stone, he thought of the relationships that had caused him pain. He realized that each one had revealed something about himself. The colleague who undermined him had taught him to trust his abilities and stand firm in his convictions. The friend who betrayed him had shown him the importance of setting boundaries and choosing relationships wisely. The critical family member had pushed him to find confidence within rather than seeking approval elsewhere. Hataka began walking again, and Hiroshi followed, his mind buzzing with newfound clarity. The path ahead was still rocky, but it no longer seemed daunting. Each stone, though sharp and unyielding, felt like a challenge to be embraced rather than a burden to be avoided. As they neared the end of the trail, Hataka spoke again. "Remember, Hiroshi, the sharp stones are not your enemies. They are your teachers. They may not come wrapped in kindness, but their lessons are invaluable. The traveler who curses the stones misses the point, but the one who walks with an open heart finds strength in every step." Hiroshi nodded, the weight of the stone in his hand serving as a tangible reminder of the wisdom he had gained. He realized that even the most difficult people in his life had played a role in shaping him. They had pushed him to confront his fears, strengthen his resolve, and become more self-aware. Without them, he would not be the person he was today. The lesson Hataka imparted that day stayed with Hiroshi long after their walk had ended. He began to see the sharp stones in his life not as sources of pain but as opportunities for growth. Each challenging relationship became a mirror, reflecting the areas where he needed to grow and evolve. And with each step forward, His feet, once soft and untested, grew stronger, enabling him to navigate life's rocky paths with greater ease and confidence. As Hiroshi reflected on the parable of the traveler, he realized that the sharp stones were not obstacles to his journey but integral parts of it. They shaped his character, tested his limits, and prepared him for the road ahead. And in their own way, they became blessings, unexpected, often unwelcome, but transformative nonetheless. With this understanding, Hiroshi walked forward, ready to face the sharp stones of life with grace and gratitude. Story 3: Roots and Storms. The gentle rustling of leaves filled the air as Hataka and Hiroshi walked deeper into the forest. The young man's mind was still lingering on the sharp stones of life, but his heart felt lighter. The realization that even pain could be a teacher had stirred something within him. But Hiroshi had another question, one that had lingered in the back of his mind. "Master," he began hesitantly, "what about the people who help us through the storms? The ones who appear when everything feels impossible? What do they mean in the grand design of our lives?" Hataka paused beneath the sprawling canopy of a towering tree, its roots twisting and anchoring deep into the earth. He placed a hand on its sturdy trunk and gestured to its immense roots, some of which surfaced above the ground like silent guardians. "Some people in our lives are like the roots of this tree," he said. "They may not be visible at first glance, but their presence provides stability during life's storms. They are the ones who hold us steady when the winds howl and the rain threatens to wash us away." Hiroshi touched the bark of the tree, its rough texture grounding him in the moment. He thought back to a friend who had stood by him during one of the darkest periods of his life. At the time, everything had felt like it was falling apart. Yet this friend had been unwavering, offering words of encouragement and a shoulder to lean on. Hiroshi had leaned heavily, and when the storm had passed, their paths had diverged. Even so, the memory of that friendship brought warmth to his heart. Hataka seemed to sense Hiroshi's reflection. "These people do not come into our lives by accident," he said. "Like the roots of this tree, they are sent to us when we need them most. They anchor us, remind us of our strength, and provide the support we cannot always find within ourselves. But just as roots remain underground, their contributions are often unseen, taken for granted until the storm arrives." In today's world, it's easy to overlook the significance of these relationships. We live in a culture that prizes independence, encouraging us to stand on our own and weather our storms alone. But life is not meant to be navigated in isolation. Just as a tree cannot stand tall without its roots, we too rely on the steady presence of others to keep us grounded. The mentor who guides us through professional uncertainty, the family member who offers unconditional love, or the friend who listens without judgment, all of these relationships serve as the roots that support us when life feels overwhelming. Hiroshi nodded, understanding the truth in Hataka's words. But a hint of sadness crept into his voice as he said, "Sometimes, these people leave, even when we wish they would stay. Their paths take them away from us." Hataka turned to Hiroshi with a knowing smile. "That is the nature of life," he said. "Roots do not follow the branches as they grow taller. Their purpose is to provide support when it is most needed. And when their role is fulfilled, they may no longer remain, but their impact lingers. Just as this tree continues to grow because of the strength its roots provided during its early years." Hiroshi let the words settle, thinking of the bittersweet nature of impermanence. The friend who had been his anchor was no longer a part of his daily life. Yet the strength he had gained from their support had carried him forward. It was a reminder to cherish these connections while they lasted and to release them with gratitude when their time came to an end. Hataka crouched down and traced the path of one of the roots as it disappeared into the soil. "Gratitude is the key," he said softly. "When we take the time to acknowledge and appreciate those who have supported us, we deepen the meaning of those relationships. Even if they are no longer with us, the gratitude remains, nourishing us like the unseen roots that sustain this tree. In the quiet moments that followed, Hiroshi thought of the many people who had been roots in his life. His father, whose unwavering belief in him had given him the courage to chase his dreams. His teacher, whose guidance had helped him find his way when he felt lost. His friend, who had been a steady presence during the storm. Each of them had left their mark, shaping him into the person he was today. Hataka stood and placed a hand on Hiroshi's shoulder. "Life is full of storms," he said. "And while we may feel alone at times, we are never truly without support. The roots are always there, even if we cannot see them. They come in many forms: people, memories, and even the lessons we've learned. When we remember this, we find the strength to stand tall, no matter how fierce the winds may be." As they continued their walk, Hiroshi found himself looking at the trees with new eyes. He noticed the way their roots intertwined, supporting not just individual trees but the entire forest. It was a reminder that we are all connected, our lives interwoven in ways we cannot always understand. The person who supports us today may be supported by someone else tomorrow, creating an unbroken chain of stability and strength. The lesson of the roots stayed with Hiroshi long after their conversation ended. He began to practice gratitude more consciously, taking the time to thank those who had stood by him, whether in person or in his heart. He also learned to accept the impermanence of these relationships, knowing that their purpose was not diminished by their departure. Just as the roots of a tree provide a foundation for growth, the support of others had given him the strength to face life's challenges and continue forward. In the quiet moments of reflection, Hiroshi found peace in the knowledge that every person who had been a root in his life had played a vital role in his journey. Their presence, whether brief or enduring, was a gift, a reminder that even in the midst of life's storms, we are never truly alone. Story 4: Stars That Stay Forever. As the evening sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and lavender, Hiroshi and Hataka found themselves gazing upward. The first stars began to twinkle in the deepening blue, their light steady and unyielding despite the vast expanse of darkness surrounding them. Hataka broke the silence, his voice calm yet filled with warmth. "Look at the stars, Hiroshi. Some people in our lives are like them, constant, unwavering. They share our burdens, celebrate our joys, and light the way when our path grows dark." Hiroshi followed the monk's gaze, his thoughts drifting to the people who had been his anchors. Unlike the fleeting connections or the challenging lessons of the sharp stones, these individuals had been with him through thick and thin. They were the ones who had seen him at his worst and loved him still. He thought of his family, the friends who felt more like siblings, and the rare mentors who had not only guided him but believed in him unconditionally. "These stars," Hataka continued, "are the rarest of gifts. In a world where so much is transient, finding people who remain steadfast is a blessing beyond measure. They are the ones who remind us of who we are when we forget, who hold us together when we feel like falling apart. Their presence is a source of light, even in the darkest of times." Hiroshi nodded, memories flooding his mind. He thought of his childhood friend who had stood by him during every milestone, cheering him on from the sidelines. He recalled his grandmother, whose quiet wisdom had guided him long after she had passed. And then there was his closest confidant, someone who had listened to his fears without judgment and celebrated his triumphs as if they were their own. These people were his stars, shining bright against the backdrop of life's uncertainties. Hataka turned to Hiroshi, his expression gentle yet resolute. "These connections are not accidental, nor are they guaranteed. They require effort, care, and mutual respect to endure, just as a sailor relies on the stars to navigate." We too must cherish and nurture these relationships to ensure they continue to guide us. In today's fast-paced world, it's easy to take these stars for granted. We get caught up in our routines, distracted by endless to-do lists and fleeting digital interactions. We assume that the people who have always been there will continue to be, without realizing that even the brightest stars can fade if neglected. Hataka's words served as a reminder that nurturing these connections requires mindfulness and intentionality. Hiroshi thought about his own habits. How often had he delayed reaching out to a friend, thinking there would always be time later? How many moments of connection had he missed because he was too absorbed in his own worries? He felt a pang of regret but also a spark of determination. It wasn't too late to change, to show the people he cared about how much they meant to him. "Master," Hiroshi said softly, "how do we honor these stars in our lives? How do we ensure that their light doesn't fade?" Hataka smiled, the kind that carried the weight of wisdom and understanding. "By being present," he said simply. "When you are with them, truly be with them. Listen without distraction. Speak with sincerity. And show your gratitude often. Let them know they are valued, not just in words but in actions. A star shines brightest when it is appreciated." The monk's words struck a chord. Hiroshi realized that presence was more than just physical. It was about attention, intention, and connection. He thought about the times he had been with loved ones but was mentally elsewhere, his focus stolen by worries or distractions. He vowed to change that, to give his full self to the people who mattered most. Hataka continued, "And remember, Hiroshi, being a star is a two-way journey. As much as you rely on them for light, they too look to you. The bonds that endure are built on mutual care and effort. You must strive to be a star in their sky as well." Hiroshi felt a wave of clarity wash over him. He had always seen these relationships as sources of support, but he hadn't considered how his own presence contributed to their strength. He resolved to be more dependable, more present, and more generous with his love and attention. As they sat beneath the stars, Hataka shared a story about a man who had lost touch with his closest friend. For years, life had pulled them in different directions, and though the friendship had once been strong, it slowly faded into memory. One day, the man realized how much he missed his friend and reached out. To his surprise, the friend welcomed him back with open arms. Their bond rekindled as if no time had passed. The story was a gentle reminder that it's never too late to repair or strengthen the connections that matter. Hiroshi thought about the people he had drifted away from, not out of anger or conflict, but simply because life had taken them down separate paths. He wondered how many of those relationships could be revived with a simple phone call or a heartfelt message. The thought filled him with hope and resolve. Hataka's voice broke through his reverie. The stars in our lives remind us that while much of life is fleeting, some connections are timeless. They transcend distance, time, and even hardship. When nurtured, these bonds offer a sense of continuity and belonging, grounding us in a world that is constantly changing. Hiroshi looked up at the night sky, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. The stars above seemed to echo the constancy of the people who had shaped his life. He silently vowed to cherish them, to honor their presence, and to ensure that his own light continued to shine for them as well. As the night deepened, Hataka placed a reassuring hand on Hiroshi's shoulder. Never underestimate the power of a steadfast connection, Hiroshi. In times of joy, they amplify our happiness. In times of sorrow, they remind us that we are not alone. And in the quiet moments in between, they simply are constant, unwavering, and radiant. Hiroshi felt a warmth in his chest, a mixture of gratitude and determination. He realized that the stars in his life were more than just relationships, they were anchors, guiding lights, and sources of strength. And just as they had been there for him, he would strive to be a steady presence in their lives as well. Under the vast expanse of the night sky, Hiroshi found a renewed sense of purpose. The stars above and the stars in his life reminded him of the beauty of connection, the importance of gratitude, and the power of unwavering love. With a heart full of appreciation and resolve, he knew that no matter where life's journey took him, these stars would continue to illuminate his path. Story 5: The Dance of Karma. The evening air was cool and still as Hiroshi and Hataka sat by a tranquil stream, the water gliding over smooth stones with an almost musical rhythm. Hiroshi, feeling the weight of their earlier conversations, broke the silence. "Master," he said softly, "you've taught me about the roots that support us and the stars that guide us. But what about those who come and go so quickly? Like a fleeting breeze? Do they have a purpose too?" Hataka's eyes twinkled as he turned toward Hiroshi. "Ah, the fleeting connections," he said with a gentle smile. "They are no less important than the roots or the stars. In fact, they are often the most profound. Every encounter, no matter how brief, is a note in the melody of life. Together, these notes form a symphony shaped by the dance of karma." Hiroshi tilted his head, intrigued. "The dance of karma," he echoed, seeking clarity. Hataka nodded, his expression thoughtful. "Karma," he explained, "is not a punishment or reward, as many believe. It is the natural law of cause and effect. Every action we take, every word we speak, every thought we have creates ripples that influence our lives and the lives of those around us. These ripples intersect, creating connections and experiences that guide us on our spiritual journey." Hiroshi let the words sink in as he gazed at the stream. The gentle ripples seemed to mirror the idea of karma, small actions creating far-reaching effects. "So," Hiroshi began slowly, "even the people who come into our lives for just a moment, they're part of this dance?" "Exactly," Hataka affirmed. "Some teach us lessons we didn't know we needed. Others act as mirrors, reflecting our inner selves. They may challenge us, inspire us, or simply remind us of something we have forgotten. Each encounter carries meaning, even if it isn't immediately apparent." Hiroshi thought back to a stranger he had met on a train years ago. They had exchanged only a few words, but the conversation had stayed with him, offering him comfort during a difficult time. At the time, he hadn't considered the significance of that interaction. Now, he realized it was a part of the karmic symphony, a note that added depth and resonance to his journey. Hataka's gaze followed Hiroshi's to the stream. "Think of the water," he said. "It flows freely, carrying leaves, twigs, and reflections. Each element interacts with the water, shaping its course in subtle ways. Our lives are much the same. Every person we meet, no matter how briefly, influences us. They leave an imprint, however small, on the flow of our journey." Hiroshi smiled at the analogy, but a question still lingered. "Master, if every encounter is part of the dance of karma, does that mean we attract these people because of our actions?" Hataka's smile deepened, his voice calm but firm. "Yes and no," he replied. "Karma is not about blame or credit. It is about balance. The people we attract often reflect the energy we carry within us, our strengths, our weaknesses, our desires, and our fears. If we are mindful, we can learn from these reflections and grow. But if we are unaware, we may find ourselves repeating patterns, drawn to the same types of people and situations without understanding why." Hiroshi nodded, feeling both the weight and the empowerment of this truth. He thought about the relationships in his life, the patterns that had emerged. There were the friends who had uplifted him, but also the ones who had drained him. The moments of joy, but also the recurring challenges. Each connection, it seemed, had something to teach him if he was willing to look closely. "Master," Hiroshi asked hesitantly, "how do we recognize the lessons in these encounters? How do we break free from patterns that no longer serve us?" Hataka's gaze softened as he placed a hand on Hiroshi's shoulder. "It begins with mindfulness," he said. "Pay attention to your interactions. What emotions do they evoke? What thoughts do they stir? When someone challenges you, instead of reacting with frustration, ask yourself, what is this situation trying to show me about myself? When someone inspires you, ask, what qualities in them resonate with me?" This practice of reflection allows you to uncover the lessons hidden in the dance of karma. Hiroshi absorbed the wisdom, feeling a sense of clarity. He realized that every connection, whether uplifting or challenging, was an opportunity for self-discovery. The colleague who irritated him might be highlighting his need for patience. The friend who inspired him might be reflecting a quality he wished to cultivate. Even the stranger who offered a kind word might be reminding him of the power of compassion. Hataka continued, his voice steady. "Karma is not fixed. It is a living, breathing force, shaped by our choices in each moment. By approaching your relationships with awareness and intention, you can influence the energy you carry and the connections you attract. You become an active participant in the dance, rather than a passive observer." Hiroshi felt a sense of empowerment, as though a veil had been lifted. The dance of karma was not something happening to him, it was something he was part of. Something he could shape. He thought about the people he had yet to meet, the ripples he had yet to create. Each interaction, he realized, was an opportunity to contribute to the symphony of life. Hataka's voice softened as he spoke his final words. "Remember, Hiroshi, the dance of karma is not about perfection. It is about growth. You will make mistakes, just as others will. But each step, each note, adds to the beauty of the whole. Embrace the dance with an open heart, and you will find that every encounter, every connection, is a gift." As the stars began to emerge in the twilight sky, Hiroshi felt a deep sense of gratitude. He thought of the people who had shaped his life, the lessons they had brought, and the ripples they had created. He knew that some connections would last a lifetime, while others would be fleeting. But each one, he now understood, was part of the dance, a note in the melody of his journey. And with this realization, he felt ready to take his next step, to embrace the unknown with curiosity and grace, and to contribute his own notes to the ever-evolving symphony of life. Story 6: Compassion and Forgiveness. The evening air hung heavy with the scent of pine as Hiroshi and Hataka sat by the edge of a still pond, its surface a perfect mirror for the sky above. The conversations of the day had left Hiroshi contemplative, but one question weighed heavily on his heart. He turned to the monk, his voice barely above a whisper. "Master," he began, "what about the pain caused by others? The betrayals? The wounds that cut so deep they leave scars? How do we move forward when the past feels like a chain around our hearts?" Hataka regarded Hiroshi with a look of quiet understanding, the kind that carried the weight of countless conversations like this one. "Forgiveness," he said simply, "is the key. It is not a gift we give to others, but a gift we give to ourselves. By forgiving, we release ourselves from the chains of anger and resentment that keep us bound to the past." Hiroshi frowned, his thoughts swirling. "But Master," he said, "if we forgive, does that mean we condone what was done to us? Does it mean we forget the pain, as if it never happened?" Hataka shook his head. a gentle smile playing at the corners of his lips. Forgiveness is not about forgetting or excusing harmful behavior. It is about reclaiming your peace. When we hold on to anger, it is like grasping a burning coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. The person who gets burned is us. Forgiveness allows us to put down the coal, to let go of the pain and make room for healing. Hiroshi's eyes drifted to the pond, its stillness disturbed only by the occasional ripple of a fish beneath the surface. He thought about the anger he had carried for years, toward a friend who had betrayed his trust, toward a family member whose words had wounded him deeply. That anger had been a constant companion, a heavy weight he hadn't known how to set down. Hataka began to tell a story, his voice weaving through the stillness like a gentle breeze. There was once a man consumed by anger. He had been wronged by someone close to him and vowed to seek revenge. He spent his days plotting, his mind filled with thoughts of how to make the other person suffer as he had suffered. But as time passed, he began to notice something strange. The person who had hurt him continued with their life, seemingly unaffected, while he remained trapped in his own misery. His anger had become his prison. Hiroshi nodded, the story resonating deeply. He had felt that same sense of entrapment, the way anger could consume every thought, leaving little room for joy or peace. "What did the man do?" he asked quietly. Hataka's expression softened. One day, the man encountered a wise monk who asked him a simple question. "If you could let go of your anger and be free, would you?" The man was taken aback. He had never considered that his anger was a choice, something he could release. The monk guided him through the practice of compassion, helping him see that the person who had wronged him was acting out of their own pain, their own ignorance. Slowly, the man began to let go. He realized that by forgiving, he was not absolving the other person but freeing himself from the burden of resentment. Hiroshi thought about the weight he had carried for so long, the way it had colored his relationships and his outlook on life. He realized that his anger had been like a poison, one he had willingly consumed in the hope that it would hurt someone else. But instead, it had only hurt him. Hataka's voice broke through his thoughts. Compassion is the bridge to forgiveness. When we choose to see others not as their actions but as human beings who, like us, are struggling, we begin to soften. This does not mean we excuse what they have done or invite them to hurt us again. It simply means we choose to release ourselves from the cycle of suffering. Hiroshi hesitated. "But Master," he said, "what if the pain feels too great? What if forgiving feels impossible?" Hataka leaned forward, his gaze steady. Forgiveness is not a one-time act, Hiroshi. It is a practice, a journey. Some wounds take time to heal, and that is okay. Begin with small steps. Reflect on the ways anger has held you back. Imagine what it would feel like to be free of it. And when you are ready, offer yourself the gift of release. The words settled over Hiroshi like a balm, soothing the raw edges of his heart. He thought about the people who had hurt him, and for the first time, he felt a flicker of understanding. Perhaps they, too, were carrying their own burdens, acting out of their own pain. This realization didn't erase the hurt, but it made the weight feel a little lighter. Hataka continued, his voice steady and warm. "Remember, forgiveness is not weakness. It is one of the greatest acts of strength. To forgive is to rise above the actions of others, to reclaim your peace and your power. It is not about them, it is about you." Hiroshi nodded, a sense of clarity beginning to emerge. He realized that forgiveness was not about changing the past, but about transforming the present. It was about choosing peace over pain, freedom over anger. As he looked at the stillness of the pond, he felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that perhaps, with time and practice, he could find that peace within himself. Hataka smiled, as if sensing Hiroshi's thoughts. The path of forgiveness is not always easy, but it is always worth it. When we let go of anger, we make room for joy, for love, for the things that truly matter. And in doing so, we not only free ourselves but create ripples that inspire others to do the same. The night deepened, and the stars began to reflect on the pond's surface, their light unwavering and serene. Hiroshi felt a quiet resolve take root within him. He knew that forgiveness would take time, that it would require patience and compassion, not just for others but for himself. But he also knew that he was ready to begin. He turned to Hataka and bowed his head, gratitude shining in his eyes. The monk placed a hand on his shoulder, a silent affirmation of the journey ahead. In that moment, Hiroshi understood that forgiveness was not the end of his story but the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with lightness, peace, and the possibility of transformation. The pond, the stars, and the stillness of the night seemed to echo this truth. A gentle reminder that even in the face of pain, the choice to let go is always within reach. Story 6: Compassion and Forgiveness. The quiet rustle of leaves accompanied Hiroshi and Hataka as they strolled along a shaded path. The conversations of the day lingered in Hiroshi's mind like echoes, each one stirring deeper questions. But there was one thought he couldn't shake, one question that had settled in his chest. He turned to Hataka, his expression earnest. "Master," he began, "what about the pain we carry from those who have hurt us? How do we let go of the anger and the weight of it all?" Hataka stopped and turned toward him, his eyes warm but resolute. "Forgiveness," he said, his voice steady, "is the key. It is not something we do for others, it is a gift we give to ourselves. To forgive is to free yourself from the chains of anger and resentment that bind your heart. It is to choose peace over pain." Hiroshi frowned slightly, struggling with the idea. But doesn't forgiveness mean we excuse what was done to us? That we accept the harm as if it didn't matter? Hataka shook his head, his expression calm. "No, Hiroshi. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or condoning what happened. It does not absolve the other person of their actions. Instead, it is about releasing the hold that pain and anger have over you. It is about reclaiming your life, your joy, your peace. When we cling to anger, it is like carrying a heavy stone everywhere we go. It weighs us down, even when we think we have moved on. Forgiveness is the act of setting that stone down." The two of them continued walking until they reached a clearing where a small pond reflected the sky. Hataka gestured for Hiroshi to sit beside him. "Let me tell you a story," he said, settling into the grass. "There was once a man consumed by anger. Someone close to him had wronged him deeply, and he couldn't let it go. He spent his days replaying the betrayal, imagining ways to take revenge. His anger became his constant companion, a flame that burned within him. But as time went on, the man began to notice something strange. While he was consumed by his thoughts of revenge, the person who had wronged him seemed unaffected. They moved on with their life, while he remained trapped, unable to find peace." Hiroshi listened intently, his own experiences flashing through his mind. He thought of the times he had replayed moments of hurt, the way those memories had followed him like shadows, coloring his days with bitterness. Hataka continued, his voice gentle but firm. "One day, the man encountered a wise monk who asked him, 'If you could let go of your anger and be free, would you?' The question caught the man off guard. He had never considered that his anger was a choice, something he could release. The monk explained that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. The only one being harmed was himself. Hiroshi looked down at his hands, feeling the weight of his own grudges. "So what did the man do?" he asked softly. The monk guided him through a practice of compassion. Hataka replied. He asked the man to reflect on the person who had wronged him, to see them not as an enemy but as a fellow human being, flawed and imperfect. He encouraged the man to imagine the pain or ignorance that might have driven their actions. Slowly, the man began to see that forgiveness was not about excusing the behavior but about releasing himself from the burden of resentment. He realized that by forgiving, he was giving himself the freedom to live without the weight of the past. Hiroshi felt a lump form in his throat. He thought about the anger he had carried for so long, the way it had shaped his relationships and his outlook. He had believed that holding on to it was a way of protecting himself. But now he wondered if it had only been holding him back. Hataka's gaze was steady as he continued. Compassion is the bridge to forgiveness. Hiroshi. It allows us to see others not as their actions but as people navigating their own struggles, their own wounds. This does not mean we excuse their behavior or invite them to hurt us again. It means we choose to rise above it, to break the cycle of suffering. Hiroshi hesitated, his voice uncertain. But what if the pain feels too deep? Too raw? What if forgiveness feels impossible? Hataka reached out and placed a hand on Hiroshi's shoulder. Forgiveness is not a single act, it is a journey. Some wounds take time to heal, and that is okay. Begin with small steps. Reflect on the ways anger has held you back. Imagine what it would feel like to be free of it. And when you are ready, offer yourself the gift of release. Even if it takes days, months, or years. Each step toward forgiveness is a step toward freedom. The pond before them shimmered in the fading sunlight, its surface calm and undisturbed. Hiroshi thought of the faces of those who had hurt him. And for the first time, he felt something shift. The pain was still there, but it no longer felt like a weight he had to carry alone. He realized that forgiveness was not about changing the past, but about transforming his relationship with it. Hataka spoke again, his tone soothing. Forgiveness is an act of strength, not weakness. It takes courage to let go of the anger that feels justified, to choose peace over pain. But when we do, we create space for healing, for joy, for love. And in doing so, we not only free ourselves but inspire others to do the same. As the sky turned to twilight, Hiroshi felt a quiet resolve settle within him. He knew the path of forgiveness would not be easy, but he also knew it was the only way forward. He looked at Hataka and bowed his head, gratitude shining in his eyes. The monk returned the gesture, a silent acknowledgement of the journey ahead. Hiroshi gazed at the pond, the stars beginning to reflect on its surface. In that moment, he understood that forgiveness was not the end of the story but the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with lightness, peace, and the possibility of transformation. He resolved to take the first step, knowing that with each act of forgiveness, he would be moving closer to the freedom he sought. Story 7: Balance and Kindness. The soft morning light filtered through the trees as Hiroshi followed Hataka along a winding forest path. The air was cool and alive with the gentle hum of nature. Yet Hiroshi's mind was troubled. The lessons of forgiveness still lingered in his heart. But now another question took shape. He turned to Hataka, his voice carrying both curiosity and hesitation. "Master, you've taught me about compassion and letting go of anger. But what about kindness? How do we ensure that our kindness doesn't leave us feeling drained or taken advantage of?" Hataka stopped by a cherry tree in full bloom, its delicate pink blossoms swaying in the breeze. He gazed at the tree for a moment before speaking. "Kindness," he began, "is one of the most beautiful qualities we can possess. It has the power to heal, to connect, and to transform. But kindness, when unchecked, can also become toxic. To truly help others, we must learn to respect our own boundaries. Hiroshi furrowed his brow. Intrigued. Toxic kindness, he echoed. How can something as pure as kindness be harmful? Hataka smiled gently and placed a hand on the tree's trunk. Let me tell you a story, he said. There was once a cherry tree in a small village. It was known far and wide for its generous fruit, which it gave to anyone who passed by. Villagers would come daily, filling their baskets with the tree's sweet cherries. The tree gave without hesitation, and the people rejoiced in its abundance. But as the seasons passed, something began to change. The tree's leaves grew sparse, its branches weakened, and its fruit became less plentiful. The villagers, so accustomed to its generosity, failed to notice that no one was tending to the tree's roots. Over time, the tree withered, unable to sustain itself. Hiroshi stared at the tree before them, its blossoms vibrant and full of life. The tree gave too much, he said quietly. It gave until it had nothing left. Exactly, Hataka replied. And so it is with us. Kindness is a gift. But if we give without tending to our own needs, we risk depleting ourselves. True compassion begins with self-care. Only when we nourish our own roots can we offer kindness that is sustainable and meaningful. Hiroshi thought of times when his own kindness had left him feeling exhausted. He remembered staying late at work to help a colleague, only to feel unappreciated. He recalled offering support to a friend in crisis, neglecting his own needs in the process. Each act of kindness had been well-intentioned, but over time, the imbalance had left him feeling drained and resentful. Hataka's voice broke through his thoughts. When we give from a place of abundance, our kindness uplifts both ourselves and others. But when we give out of obligation, guilt, or a desire for approval, it becomes a burden. This is why boundaries are essential. They allow us to give freely, without losing ourselves in the process. Hiroshi nodded slowly, the lesson beginning to take root. But Master, he asked, how do we set boundaries without seeming selfish? Isn't kindness about putting others first? Kindness is about balance, Hataka said firmly. It is not selfish to prioritize your well-being. In fact, it is one of the most selfless things you can do. When you care for yourself, you ensure that you have the energy, the strength, and the clarity to care for others. Boundaries are not walls, they are bridges that allow us to connect with others in a healthy and sustainable way. Hataka crouched down and began tracing lines in the dirt with a stick. Imagine this, he said. A stream flows through a forest, nourishing the plants and animals around it. If the stream flows too freely, without any banks to contain it, the water spreads thin and loses its strength. But if the stream is confined within gentle, steady banks, it flows with purpose, bringing life wherever it goes. Boundaries are the banks that guide your kindness. They ensure that your energy is directed where it is needed most. Hiroshi let the metaphor wash over him, its simplicity revealing a profound truth. He realized that his struggles with kindness stemmed from a lack of boundaries. He had given freely, but without considering his own limits. His kindness had often come at a cost. Hataka rose and gestured toward the cherry tree. If you want to help others, Hiroshi, you must first tend to your own roots. This means taking time to rest, to reflect, and to nourish your spirit. It means saying no when your plate is full and recognizing that you cannot pour from an empty cup. By caring for yourself, you ensure that your kindness is not only genuine but enduring. Hiroshi thought about the times he had said yes when he wanted to say no, fearing that refusal would make him seem unkind. He realized now that true kindness was not about sacrificing himself but about giving in a way that honored both his needs and the needs of others. "Master," he said, his voice thoughtful, "how do we know when to draw the line? How do we recognize when our kindness is becoming toxic?" Hataka smiled, his eyes reflecting the wisdom of years. "Listen to your heart," he said. "When kindness begins to feel like a burden, when it leaves you feeling drained or resentful, that is a sign that your roots need tending. Pay attention to your energy, your emotions, and your inner voice. They will guide you. And remember, Hiroshi, it is not the quantity of kindness that matters, but the quality. A single act of genuine kindness, given with love and intention, is worth more than 100 acts given out of obligation." The words settled over Hiroshi like a gentle rain, nourishing the seeds of understanding within him. He resolved to approach his kindness with greater mindfulness, to set boundaries that allowed him to give freely without losing himself. As the morning light filtered through the cherry blossoms, Hiroshi felt a renewed sense of clarity. He realized that kindness was not a finite resource but a wellspring that could be replenished through self-care and balance. By tending to his own roots, he could ensure that his kindness flowed abundantly, uplifting both himself and those around him. Hataka placed a hand on Hiroshi's shoulder, his touch light yet grounding. "Remember, Hiroshi," he said softly, "kindness is a dance. It is a balance between giving and receiving, between others and yourself. When you honor this balance, your kindness becomes a gift that enriches not just the lives of others but your own as well." Hiroshi looked at the cherry tree, its blossoms vibrant and alive, and felt a deep sense of peace. He understood now that true kindness was not about giving endlessly but about giving wisely. And with that understanding, he felt ready to step into the world, his heart full, his roots strong, and his kindness flowing freely. As we walk through the ever-changing seasons of life, it becomes clear that no connection is without purpose. Every person we meet, whether they stay for a moment or a lifetime, leaves an imprint on the fabric of who we are. These relationships, like the intricate patterns of a tapestry, weave together to create the story of our existence. Each thread, whether vibrant or coarse, contributes to the unique beauty of our journey. Life is filled with fleeting moments and lasting impressions. Some encounters are like the gentle brush of a breeze, brief but unforgettable. Others, like the roots of a tree, provide stability and strength when we need it most. And then there are the stars, those rare, steadfast connections that guide us through the darkness, offering light and unwavering presence. Every person, every relationship, is a teacher if we are willing to learn. Even the challenges, the conflicts, and the heartbreaks serve a greater purpose, nudging us toward growth, resilience, and a deeper understanding of ourselves. Zen philosophy teaches us to approach life with an open heart, one that is curious and compassionate. It reminds us that each interaction, no matter how small, is part of a greater design, a dance of karma that guides us towards spiritual evolution. By embracing this perspective, we can transform our relationships into sacred opportunities for connection and self-discovery. Gratitude becomes our compass, mindfulness our tool, and kindness our gift to the world. Take a moment to reflect on the people who have walked alongside you in your journey. Who has been your steadfast star, your anchor during life's storms? Who has challenged you, acting as a sharp stone to refine your character? And who, like a fleeting breeze, has touched your life in ways you may not fully understand yet? These reflections hold the key to unlocking the lessons that each connection brings. As you carry these stories with you, let them inspire you to approach your relationships with greater awareness. Celebrate the joys of meaningful connections and embrace the challenges as opportunities for growth. Remember to nurture not only the people around you but also yourself. Boundaries, self-care, and mindfulness are not acts of selfishness, they are acts of love that ensure your kindness remains abundant and genuine. We hope these stories have brought a sense of clarity, warmth, and inspiration to your heart. If they resonated with you, we encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us about a person who has made a profound impact on your life, a lesson they taught you, or a moment that shaped your journey. Your story may inspire someone else to see their relationships in a new light, creating a ripple of positivity that extends far beyond this moment. Thank you for taking the time to join us on this exploration of human connection and spiritual growth. Your presence here means more than words can express. If you found value in these reflections, we invite you to like this video, share it with someone who might need a little inspiration, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that nourish the soul. Together, we can create a community where gratitude, kindness, and mindfulness flourish. As you go about your day, remember that every encounter is an opportunity, a note in the melody of your life. Approach each moment with intention, each relationship with care, and each challenge with courage. The beauty of life lies not in its perfection but in the way we learn and grow through every connection. May you carry these lessons with you, letting them guide you toward a path of greater peace, love, and understanding. Thank you for watching. And until we meet again, may your journey be filled with light and meaningful connections.